Hey guys, so Shane from the River Paddlers here. So I have a huge, big trip announcement that I'd like to make. Um, Leaving here in a couple weeks, gonna be using my Preon Yukon Expedition kayak, going on a trip, a kayak camping trip that is expected to be between 12 and 14 days long. We are gonna cover approximately 430 miles on the river. So so really excited. So just to talk a little bit about the trip, um, I have a couple clues here. One of them, I am wearing a Canada shirt. So yes, we are headed to Canada for a kayak camping adventure in Canada. But not only in Canada, we will be in basically the complete wilderness of Canada on the far western side of Canada. I have another clue in this video, and that is I will be using my Preon Yukon Expedition kayak. The key word in that being Yukon. So yes, we are headed to the Yukon River in the Yukon, Canada. Yukon River is located in the far west northern part of Canada. We will only be going through one city during our entire trip, and for this trip we will be flying into Whitehorse to get it started. So this trip is going to be in the middle of the wilderness, meaning we gotta be ready for basically anything. We need to be ready for first aid. We need to be ready for wild animals and bears. We need to be ready for unexpected weather. We need to have plenty of food, extra food. We just need to be ready for everything. So with this trip, we have a fairly large group of us, a good bit of us going on the first half of the trip, which is going to be Whitehorse to Kayak in the Yukon, Canada. And also another part of the group, including myself, is going to go the whole distance, all the way from Whitehorse to Dawson City. The only city we're going through, and it's not a huge city, is Kayak in the entire thing. So the Yukon River has a lot of history to it. So from that aspect, it's going to be a really neat kind of trip. Also, the Yukon River is a river that this time of year that we are going has a really good flow, average speed 5 to 8 miles an hour. Also for this trip, in the first couple days, we are going to be going through a lake that is approximately 30 miles long. This lake can be completely unpredictable. You can have high winds, huge surf, that can literally make us have to set up camp for days before we're able to move on downriver. So there's so much to this trip, and so much planning and detail and work that goes into making this happen, and to being able to get our kayaks and gear to the Yukon and not having to rent that stuff. So I thought it'd be cool to kind of show with you guys kind of a little bit of how it all came together and a little more detail about the trip. So here you go.
That pin is located close to where I live, near Charlotte, North Carolina. And just to give you the scope of how far we're traveling for this trip, from the east coast of the United States all the way to the upper northern west side of Canada. And then all the way down, we're going to go, our starting point will be in Whitehorse, Yukon, Canada. Whitehorse is the biggest city in the Yukon. We will be going through Kayak in the middle of our trip and ending in Dawson City, but both of those fell in comparison to the size of Whitehorse. Whitehorse is really the only city in this region that really is kind of a normal city, if you will. The Yukon, Canada is one of the most secluded, most wilderness places left in the entire world. And as you can see, it's brushed up there right beside Alaska. Um, we will actually end our trip about 150 miles from Alaska. So, just to give you a scope of how far away this trip really is from home and how big of a deal it actually is. So, from Whitehorse, starting on the river, kind of the line that we're going to take here. The first day into the second day, we're going to hit the long 30-mile lake. And this is where we got to really, be smart about things. We want to stay close to shore in case there's big storms or stuff like that. The next 30 miles are supposed to be really swiftly moving current and water. So in that area, we're definitely going to have to be careful. From there, there's so many different old historical sites that are just sort of still, they're abandoned, but they're riverside that we're going to be able to stop along the way. And the thought of being able to do that and see history, in that kind of aspect is really cool. We're going to go through Karamax, and that's when we're going to lose half the group, but the other half is going to stay on for the rest of the trip. We got to think about filtering water in the Yukon some, but the silt level is pretty high through a lot of the Yukon, so we're going to really be relying on side creeks as much as possible to do all of that filtering. Parts of this river is also very braided, so it's going to be kind of difficult at times, I believe, to even know if you're kind of at a side creek or if it's part of the main river. Because if it's just a braided part of the river that goes out and back in, you don't really want to filter that because that's going to be the same silty water. Just supposed to be amazing, beautiful views in this country that we'll get to see and observe and be a part of. I'm going to be camping, of course, riverside. This trip, approximately 430 miles, is expected to take us 12 to 14 days to paddle the entire thing from Whitehorse to Dawson City. So as I just kind of have another overlay going here, so you got to think about how are we getting all our boats and gear down there? Well, the answer to that is Mitchell Childers. If you've heard of a group called Cross Paddles, he is one of the original members of Cross Paddles and today a good friend of mine. So he was one of the people, him and Shane Dublin are the people who kind of put this thing together. So Mitchell is going to be borrowing a trailer from someone else who is going on the trip, and he will actually be driving all the kayaks approximately 3,600 miles from home to our put in Whitehorse. From there, he is going to drive to Dawson City, which is the end of our trip, and he will be catching a plane back to Whitehorse to meet us to be able to put in at that point. So Jack Cool will be joining Mitchell in the drive. For the rest of us coming from the Carolina area and Alabama area, we are going to be flying into Whitehorse either 1 or 2 days before this trip is set to begin. So there's a lot of thought that goes into this, a lot of thought that goes into, the food that you can take, but you got to go a step further and think not only the food, but other stuff. Can you cross the border from the United States into Canada with the food that we have? There's been a lot of that kind of talk that's come up, and just times where we're really not sure, even after looking, information online that tells us, what we can and cannot bring. So it's definitely something that we're trying to be as careful as possible with, because we don't want to take food up there if it's not going to make it through the border, and we also want to make it as easy on Mitchell as possible to make it through that border when he gets there. Tim Simpson has created the Yukon Express, and this is where the kayaks are gonna be in for the ride to the Yukon. So Tim put this together. Looks absolutely fantastic. Can hold 9 boats in there. So it's going to have 9 boats in there, 8 kayaks, 1 canoe. The Yukon is a river where a lot of people tend to do it by canoe, and it makes sense because you can hold so much stuff in that, and you really don't have to worry. As when you do it in a kayak, you don't have as much room to hold stuff. However, the kayak is more maneuverable, and in that aspect, it's better. You just got to kind of weigh what you want to do there.
I am here at the house loading up the truck right now. I'm getting ready to go pick up Brian, and then we are going to head over to Mitchell Childers' house to drop off the kayaks and to load them up onto the Yukon Express. Here at Brian's house, just got his boat and my boat loaded up here on the truck. So he has got his canoe ready to go. We are getting ready to head over to Mitchell's and drop off our boats and gear to the Yukon Express.
Getting close.
Getting very close.
How you doing, sir?
Good, how are you?
I can't complain.
You excited for a short little drive?
I am. Yeah, about 3,600 to Whitehorse and 400
Another.
to Dawson.
Oh,
Ryan, how you doing?
Good. Good to see you.
Working hard.
Yeah. It's just hot out, man.
It is.
Nice today, though.
But we're headed to cooler country.
Yeah, yeah. It's coming.
yes, we are. Temperatures are looking good too.
Checking out, got my Yukon River shirt already.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, you know what? Debbie got this for me. I was like, I'm not going to take this to the Yukon. I was like, wait, I can wear it today.
Trial and error.
Trial and error. So we are here at the Yukon Express loading it up. Mitchell is the tie down master.
I don't know about that.
So the Yukon Express is loaded up and ready to go. There is one more boat to be loaded in the morning, and then the Yukon Express will be on its way to the Yukon, Canada. Mitchell Childers, Jack Cole, going to be making that 3,600 mile drive to Whitehorse, and then another 400 miles to Dawson City to take the boats and gear there. Really excited. The trip is starting right now.